Thank you very much. During the last quarter century, a flourishing dialogue between science and religion has been going on in North America and Europe. Science and religion have discovered that they have important mutual interests and contributions to make to each other. Let me list just 4 ways in which science and religion are related. First, religion furnishes the conceptual framework in which science can flourish. Science is not something that is natural to mankind. As Loren Eiseley has emphasized, science is an invented cultural institution which requires a unique soil in which to flourish. Modern science did not arise in the Orient or in Africa, but in Western civilization. Why is this so? Eiseley argues that it is due to the unique contribution of the Christian faith to Western culture. The scientific enterprise is based on certain assumptions which cannot be proved scientifically, but which are guaranteed by the Christian worldview. For example, the laws of logic, the orderly nature of the external world, the reliability of our cognitive faculties, and the objectivity of the moral values used in science. Science couldn't even exist without these assumptions, and yet these assumptions cannot be proved scientifically. They are philosophical assumptions, which, interestingly, are part and parcel of a Christian worldview. Thus, religion is relevant to science in that it can furnish a conceptual framework in which science can exist. More than that, the Christian religion historically did furnish the conceptual framework in which modern science was born and nurtured. Secondly, science can both verify and falsify the claims of religion. When religions make claims about the natural world, they intersect the domain of science and are, in effect, making predictions which scientific investigation can either verify or falsify. Let me give some examples of each. First, examples of falsifications. Some examples are obvious. The views of ancient Greek and Indian religions that the heavens or the world rested upon the shoulders of Atlas or on the back of a great turtle were easily falsified. But more subtle examples are available too. One of the most notorious was the medieval church's condemnation of Galileo for holding that the earth moves around the sun rather than vice versa. On their basis of misinterpretation of certain biblical passages, medieval theologians denied that the earth moved. But scientific evidence falsified this hypothesis, and the church belatedly finally came to admit its mistake. Another interesting example of science's falsifying a religious view is the claim of many Eastern religions, like Hinduism and Taoism, that the world is divine and therefore eternal. The discovery during the 20th century of the expansion of the universe reveals that far from being eternal, all matter and energy, even physical space and time themselves, came into existence at a finite point before which nothing existed. As Stephen Hawking says in his book, The Nature of Space and Time, almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. But if the universe came into being at the Big Bang, then it is temporally finite and contingent in its existence, and therefore neither eternal nor divine, as pantheistic religions had claimed. On the other hand, science can also verify religious claims. For example, one of the principal doctrines of the Judeo-Christian faith is that God created the universe out of nothing a finite time ago. The Bible begins with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." The Bible thus teaches that the universe had a beginning. This teaching was repudiated both by ancient Greek philosophy and by modern atheism. Then in 1929, with the discovery of the expansion of the universe, this doctrine was dramatically verified. Physicists John Barrow and Frank Tipler, speaking of the beginning of the universe, explain, "At this singularity, space and time came into existence. Literally nothing existed before the singularity. So if the universe originated at such a singularity, we would truly have a creation out of nothing. Against all expectation, science thus verified this religious prediction. A second scientific verification of a religious belief is the claim of the great monotheistic faiths that the world is the product of intelligent design. Scientists originally thought that whatever the initial conditions of the universe were, eventually the universe would evolve the life forms that we see today. But during the last 30 years or so, scientists have been stunned by the discovery of how complex and sensitive a balance of initial conditions must be given in the Big Bang in order for the universe to permit the evolution and existence of intelligent life. In various fields, discoveries have repeatedly disclosed that the existence of intelligent life depends upon an incomprehensibly delicate balance of physical constants and quantities, such that if any of these were altered even by a hair's breadth, the balance would be destroyed and life would not exist. In fact, the universe appears to have been fine-tuned from the moment of its inception for the production of intelligent life. Given the incomprehensible improbability of the initial conditions necessary for our existence, it is plausible to believe that these are not the result of chance, but of design. Thus, science can both verify and falsify claims of religion. Third, science encounters metaphysical problems which religion can help to solve. A possible example is the so-called measurement problem in quantum physics. According to quantum physics, subatomic particles do not have all of their properties intrinsically, but only in relation to a measuring apparatus. The problem is that the measuring apparatus itself can also be described by quantum physics, but then it too lacks certain properties unless it is related to another measuring apparatus. But that apparatus can also be described by quantum physics, and off we go on a vicious infinite regress. Unless there is some way to break the chain, nothing would possess any of these properties, which is absurd. Now, some physicists have proposed that the chain is broken when the measurement is observed by consciousness. But it seems outrageous to say that the whole universe depends upon human consciousness for its existence. Moreover, human consciousness is linked to a physical substratum, the brain, which can be given a quantum physical description. So the question inevitably arises, who observes the human observers? What is needed here is a sort of transcendent, cosmic observer who observes immediately the result of any quantum measurement situation. But this is, of course, exactly the being in whom the theist believes. And thus, the person who believes in God seems to have the resources needed to resolve the measurement problem plaguing quantum physics. Finally, number 4, religion can help to adjudicate scientific theories. In cases in which two scientific theories are empirically equivalent, metaphysical concerns, including religious concerns, come into play. An excellent example is the special theory of relativity. There are two ways to interpret the mathematics of special relativity. On Einstein's interpretation, there is no absolute now in the world. Rather, what is now is relative to different observers in motion. But on Lorentz's interpretation, there is an absolute now in the world, but we just can't be sure which events in the world are happening now because motion affects our measuring instruments. These two interpretations are empirically equivalent. But I want to argue that if God exists, then Lorentz was right. And here's the argument. If God exists, then God is in time because he is really related to the world. But if God is in time, then a privileged observer exists. And if a privileged observer exists, then an absolute now exists. Thus, there is an absolute now, just as Lorentz claimed. So if God exists, a Lorentzian rather than an Einsteinian theory of relativity is correct. It's hard to imagine how religion could have any greater relevance to science than this, to show that one theory is wrong and another is right. So in summary then, I've described four ways in which science and religion can relate. Religion can furnish the conceptual framework in which science can flourish. Science can both verify and falsify claims of religion. Science encounters metaphysical problems which religion can help to solve. And religion can adjudicate scientific theories. And that's why, after all, the dialogue between these two disciplines is flourishing today.